Hypercycle, a blockchain layer 2 on top of Cardano. By Goertzel, SingularityNET.
Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on the AIBC stage again, and this time together with one of my good friends and longtime collaborators, Tufi Saliba. So
it's a duet.
All right, yeah. I was about to start singing, but I thought the better of it. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to talk about some joint work that we're undertaking now, which is really the culmination of some technical conversations we've been having over a number of years. And this is a project called Hypercycle, which is a new blockchain, which initially it's taking the form of a new layer 2 network, a Cardano sidechain customized for AI, including the AI running on the SingularityNET platform that I've been leading, but also AI more generally. So I'm gonna sort of introduce and frame what we're doing with Hypercycle and explain why it's the ultimate golden solution to all the problems plaguing the blockchain space, and then I'll turn it over to Tufi around halfway through to talk about his own unique technology contributions, which have to do with the Toda blockchain technology, which is one of the central aspects of Hypercycle. So why are we creating this Hypercycle thing, which I'm going to explain to you what it is during the rest of this talk? I mean, basically, to simplify, it's because blockchain is an incredibly important technology for the future of humanity and the path to post-humanity. I mean, blockchain allows complex networks of computational processes to operate in a decentralized way without any central controller. That's incredibly important. On the other hand, current blockchain technologies all kind of suck. I mean, they're slow, they're expensive, they're awkward to use. So it's not good that a technology so critical to the future of humanity is so bad technologically in so many ways, right? And we're aiming to solve that. I mean, to lay it out in more depth, I mean, we need global tech infrastructure to be secure, democratic, and decentralized. And fundamentally, blockchain leverages basic computer science in a way that can enable that, but we need blockchain not to be so slow, awkward, and expensive. And I mean, I come at this from primarily an AI point of view. I mean, I've spent most of my career trying to effect the transition from narrow AIs that carry out highly specific functions to general intelligences that can think and reason and learn more like people, which I look at as an intermediate step toward superintelligence, AI going far, far beyond humanity. And I mean, the reason I got into the blockchain side of things is I think the way for the transition from narrow AI to AGI to go best is if both the narrow AIs doing practical things in the world now and the general intelligences we're aiming to build, if all of these operate in a decentralized democratic way rather than being controlled by elites. Blockchain can enable this, but we need blockchain technology that's better, right? So I launched in 2017 the SingularityNET network, which is the preeminent infrastructure for blockchain-based AI. It's a blockchain-based multi-agent system that allows multiple AI agents created and put online by multiple people to coordinate at scale and provide, you know, commercial or free services to anyone who needs AI. And SingularityNET is out there now. It runs. It's powered by the AGIX cryptographic token, and you know, it's an interesting system. We've done natural language processing, genomics, decentralized finance. We've done a lot of things on top of it, and I think it will be amped up even further by the Hypercycle technology that we're going to talk about today. So a few of the vertical market specific projects and other ecosystem projects built on top of SingularityNET. You can see on the slide here, you can Google all these and find out what they're about. I mean, yesterday on the GameFi stage, I gave a talk on the Sophiaverse Metaverse project we're building. Awakening Health is using Singularity and AI to power humanoid robots. So the Sophia humanoid robot, you've all probably seen, that was the first robot citizen. We have Sophia's little sister, Grace, who's doing elder care robotics, and virtual Sophias in the Sophiaverse Metaverse. Singularity DAO, the t-shirt I randomly put on today, is applying Singularity and AI for decentralized finance. So a lot of cool projects running on SingularityNet. And one of the limitations we've had to SingularityNet so far is we built SingularityNet on top of Ethereum. I mean, this is because we launched SingularityNet in 2017. You know, Ethereum had smart contracts then, nobody else did. It was amazing. I mean, I salute the Ethereum team for being the first to put smart contracts out there. I mean, that let us build SingularityNet and let so much else get created. Nevertheless, when you look at what Ethereum is right now, we came to the conclusion, you know, Cardano is a much stronger blockchain and more powerful ecosystem. We've made the...
And you can see the evolution.
Yeah.
It's upwards, but we decided to put it this way.
I was standing on my head when I made this slide, yeah. But
I'm joking.
So, we've made the SingularityNet platform multi-chain. We've made the AGIX token multi-chain. There's now AGIX on Ethereum and also AGIX on the ADA platform. And actually on April 18th, not too long from now, we're finally launching the converter, which is a Plutus smart contract that lets you go back and forth freely between the AGIX on Ethereum, AGIX on ADA. Shortly after that, we'll launch staking on the ADA platform for AGIX token and launch the full-on SingularityNet marketplace on ADA. So this port to Cardano is a big step forward, but not a big enough step forward, right? I mean, Cardano is faster and more scalable. It's a great general purpose blockchain. What we're doing with Hypercycle is launching a side chain of Cardano that's specialized to provide even greater scalability, even lower cost, even greater usability specifically for AI running on top of Cardano, such as the SingularityNet platform running on top of Cardano. So what are we doing? So how are we making an even bigger step than Cardano has made so far toward making blockchain not suck, and in particular not suck for AI, which is the application most important to me? Well, first of all, and Tufi's going to talk about this in a couple minutes, we're within Hypercycle, we're getting rid of the ledger. So no more distributed ledger, no more replicated ledger. Instead, we use the Toda network that Tufi and his colleague Dan Tolliver made. The Toda network lets you do blockchain with no ledger. So instead, every node, every participant in the network contains its own transaction history and some of the transaction history of its neighbors. So you shard all the way down to the individual network participants. And getting rid of the ledger gets rid of a whole lot of inefficiency and awkwardness. The other key thing we're doing, we're building in the notion of reputation at the core of the network. So complementing the Toda platform's ledgerless consensus mechanisms, complementing that, we have a proof of reputation consensus, which in many ways is the next step beyond proof of stake. Like, everyone who enters into the network gets a reputation based on their reputable actions in the network. You can use this reputation to drive consensus, and this can be a powerful heuristic adding on to the efficiency boost you already get from the Toda network. And finally, I mean, anyone who has written Solidity code and comes from a sort of computer science or programming language background realizes, while this was groundbreaking in a way, it's kind of not the best programming language out there. And I mean, there's a lot of cut and paste coding in the Solidity world, which is ugly. which is because Solidity, it's not a sophisticated functional programming language. It's not built with composability in mind. Haskell, which is the foundation of Cardano's Plutus-based smart contracts, is a lot more sophisticated. We're building on that even further in Hypercycle. So we're taking a language called Meta, M-E-T-T-A, which stands for Meta Type Talk, that we developed for our OpenCog Hyperon AGI platform. We're taking the Meta language, we're developing it as a plugin for Haskell. So going further and further in the direction of sophisticated functional programming. And I think we can cash all this out for end users in a way that in the end will be some pretty simple to use low code and no code frameworks, but you need some sophisticated mechanisms behind the scenes. So yeah, through ledgerless blockchain techniques, through proof of reputation, and through use of sophisticated functional programming frameworks on the back end, we can make a blockchain that's just far faster, far cheaper, far better for the environment, and far easier to use than what we have now. We're leveraging the power of Cardano and taking it one step further. So we've got Toda that Tufi will talk about in a minute. We've got SingularityNET's weighted liquid rank reputation framework, and we got OpenCog Hyperon's meta language as a plugin for Cardano's Plutus smart contract language. And we've been talking about this for a long time together. Now we're finally starting to build it, and I'm going to turn it over to Tufi for 10 minutes or so to tell you a bit about the Toda aspect of all this, which is a very, very key aspect of how Hypercycle can do what it does.
Thanks, Ben. Just a quick intro. So I am the author of Toda IP. My co-author, his name is Dan Tolliver, ex-NASA scientist. I call him the rocket scientist in the house. He's not here today, but together we're super excited to be building the Hypercycle. There are a lot of projects that they started building on Toda IP, and we are involved in many of them, but we're very, very selective in which ones we're going to take on the lead role, and I'm extremely honored and delighted to be taking on the lead role with the Hypercycle. Starting today, that will be my main focus, leading the Hypercycle development, and for the next 18 months we plan to take it to the next level, and hopefully I'm suitable enough to take it subsequently to beyond that. What is Hypercycle? I start with a metaphor. If we're successful together as a community to build the AGI, so that's more like, imagine planet Earth. That's the brain of this planet Earth. Every single AI agent that may think they are more intelligent than another AI agent would be a neuron in that metaphor. Those neurons, they may need to talk to each other. The way they talk to each other, they talk value. AI, when it computes something, the moment it computes something, that thing becomes value. The current internet cannot transmit value without having to depend on a third party. So if we were to think of a global brain, and those are neurons, that transmission is more like the synapses of the brain. And that is effectively the metaphor that I use of what is Hypercycle. So just imagine we get to AGI without synapses. It's impossible to envision that it's just a single engine is going to solve every single thing in the world. But when you have a place where you can have 40,000 engines working together or competing with each other, and later on maybe 40 million or whatnot, maybe, just maybe, we can get there.
That's an interesting metaphor, and if you think about ledger versus ledgerless blockchain, a blockchain with a ledger, it's like trying to build a brain where every neuron has to have a copy of the transactions of every other neuron stored inside it, which would be crazy, right? Whereas in Toda, each neuron stores its own history, which is far more tractable.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to, if we follow through that metaphor, your body needs a lot of energy in order for it to do certain things. When you get the energy, you get it, sometimes it's carbohydrates, the fat cells, the protein. And that perhaps when people are going to dig into the hypercycle, what does it take for me to utilize the hypercycle? You're going to need those energy units. Those energy units might be expressed in tokens. And effectively, when you have the ability to acquire those energy units, you're able to run those programs. Same way, your body, if you cannot get nutrients, it doesn't matter how smart your brain is not going to function without those nutrients. So metaphors are good, but of course, I'm technical enough for any one of you, if you would like to get into the technicalities, to get deep and as deep as you want into the details of how things can work. One thing it's extremely important to mention here with the Toda IP protocol, while many projects they were working on it, some of them they skyrocket, some of them they fail, some of them they stagnate. One of the projects that we started working on together, which is perhaps like stagnant, called the Todalarity, will be enabled to come back to life when we have something like the Hypercycle, which we're also extremely excited about. We have not given up on the Todalarity concept, so some folks in the audience might ask me in the past, and which is super exciting. The data structure is an important element when building anything in computer science. For those that are not technical enough, you might think of Google search, for example. When you go to Google to search, as you type the search, you see the results. The work is not being done when you actually run the search. That's actually 0.001% of the work. The real work is being done ahead of time into putting it in a data structure. And that's how it's able to find the results instantaneously. Okay? Similarly, when it comes to, if you were to imagine a global blockchain or ground that can connect us all, we needed to have a data structure that perhaps can be interoperable by construct, as opposed to having to build layers for interoperability. We need to eliminate the dependency on a third party. When I say that, I do not imply eliminating third parties. I do not imply. I'm very explicit. The dependency on a third party, which means if you are a third party and you're doing certain business or whatnot, you're certainly welcome to participate and provide service. The difference here, when there's a service that you provide into an ecosystem that nobody depends on you, someone could compete with you. You may not like that initially, but the entire ecosystem would certainly like that because the evolution can be progressive. Each and every one of you dependent on, historically, on systems such as banks. And when you depend on banks, the evolution of banks, they go regressive and not progressive. And if you watch certain governments in the world that they go regressive, you would notice that the people depended so much on those governments, and then they suck. Phenomenal governments, they give a little bit more to the people. So, same with banks that they're trying to transition towards being less dependent, they will make it without being disrupted, and those that they are not, they will be disrupted. Effectively, what is happening right now with crypto, you all know that what you've been promised with the peer-to-peer, but you still have to depend on A, and depend on B, and depend on C. That dependency results in an evolution that is regressive. Perhaps instead of criticizing it for the purpose of criticizing, and as you all know, technologists that they're outside of the crypto world, that some of them, they're extremely phenomenal technologies such as CTO of Cisco, such as Moxie Marlinspike from Signal. When they criticize crypto, their criticism is valid. Despite the fact what people think in crypto is that, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, they don't like us, whatnot. No, no, no. The criticism is valid technically, okay? But instead of just pointing at the criticism, or instead of just criticizing, perhaps we can be part of the solution.
Well, basically, the use of the ledger makes things very expensive, which then requires miners, which then leads to oligopoly. And if you get rid of this unnecessary cost of computational expense, then suddenly you get rid of the drive to oligopoly that is built into leading cryptocurrency systems now.
Absolutely. So we start with the data structure, and the data structure can enable retrieval on a global scale and saving on a global scale and relatabilities and so on and so forth without having to depend on any single third party such as a ledger. And then we take it to the next level with Toda IP. So when you look at projects like Earth-64, that for the last year I was leading Earth-64, and 2 days ago I already told the entire community of 64 I'm stepping out and in. And what do I mean by that? Earth-64 was phenomenal success before release. We have about 380 bundles that got distributed across many different businesses. And I'm taking one of those bundles myself and using it in one of the projects, and I'm putting my name and my own reputation, everything that I've worked on with the Hypercycle. We're using a single bundle. And that bundle is effectively, it's part of the binary tree. It takes a branch of that binary tree. It's 2 to the power 51, gives you 2.2 quadrillion tiny little units. The 2.2 quadrillion is sufficient to run a lot of things. Effectively, if you think of Bitcoin is actually 2.1 quadrillion, not, when it says 21 million Bitcoins is the maximum, it's actually 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. So the reason why you need those tiny little units, it's going back to thinking of what are those energy containers. And if you want an energy container, you need an energy container that it's known globally, so you don't have to depend on a third party. So that's why we need that, we use that data structure. And effectively what data structure is math. So for those that are not familiar with data structure, what it can give you certain deterministic things. It's not probabilistic. Data structure gives you a 100%. What is it? What do I mean by that? If I ask the audience how many numbers, how many integers are between 2 and 4? 1. If you ask which one is it, number 3. Okay, those are like deterministic things, and that's precisely what a data structure provides you. So, we use that along with, of course, a lot of phenomenal methodologies in Toda IP and excellent developers that together we're able to attract. So we encourage a lot of folks that they are in development, that they want to participate in this ecosystem to reach out and see how we can together as a community build the dream of the AGI and provide a lot of great things for humanity in a secure way. A lot of folks, they know that Ben and I were so adamant about the security of AI. What I do to give back to society, I chair the IEEE protocols. It's the International Protocols for AI Security. IEEE is the largest in the world for 100,000 members. We're launching that AI center on September 28th in Busan, South Korea. Again, that's my give back to society. We do it in conjunction with things, and we've got a lot of support from Ben with that. Why do we care so much about that? Because frankly, the future is AI. And if that AI is not secure, doesn't matter if you've got anything else in the world. If that AI is not secure, you've got no future. We're here to ensure that that future is available for each and every one of you, for your own children, and it's actually servicing you as opposed to taking things away from you.
So we're almost out of time here.
Right.
49 seconds left to explain the rest of the singularity.
Right. So I guess we're going to need an extra minute, but this is what we're doing here with Hypercycle. So I'll let Ben talk about the end results here, and thank you very much.
Yeah, we could talk about this all day because there's so many so many different pieces here, right? And I think Tufi and Dan Tolliver, his primary collaborator on this, have put many years of deep thinking, mathematical analysis, data structure, engineering, prototyping, and rolling out real systems and real versions of Toda network. And I'm thrilled to be able to sort of help amplify and help this deep thinking and this amazing work on data structures and algorithms and crypto math to help manifest that in a different way. Because many of the systems already built on Toda network by Tufi and Dan, their colleagues, are really, really interesting and delivering value in their particular ways. I think that by putting what they've done in Toda together with proof of reputation and together with Cardano's Plutus language, I think we're going to be able to get something quite interesting. And the Cardano Hydra protocol, which I haven't talked much about, is a key piece of this, because what Hydra does is it allows Cardano's side chains to run isomorphically to main chain, so it lets you run the Plutus smart contracts on the side chain. This lets us run Plutus on top of their Toda system. So by piecing these various highly technical parts together, I think we're going to get something that's quite fundamental. It will let us run Cardano smart contracts on an infrastructure that's much more lightweight, scalable, and low cost. And it will let us run consensus mechanisms and other dynamics on Hypercycle that are customized just for what Singularity needs. And there's going to be many different applications here, which we don't have time to go into. But among the things we've been digging into are like, how do you make our OpenCog Hyperon AGI engine run really scalably across millions of computers along the world? How would you make a decentralized social network, which is like the next thing beyond Facebook and Twitter, but runs purely decentralized without any need for a big tech company to do machine learning or any other aspect? I mean, how would you make DeFi, like Singularity DAO is doing, run in a way that lets every individual do high-performance trading at low cost, right? And I mean, all these things and loads of other applications, I mean, they need decentralized AI that's, fast, cheap, scalable, and secure. And I think we can get there by putting together the brilliant work Tufi and Dan have been doing with all the other tools we've been describing. This is a Hypercycle project. I'm really psyched that Tufi has risen to the occasion of leading this project. We've just very recently started on detailed development of this, and we're going to be moving this forward fast over the rest of this year and into 2023. So you'll be hearing a lot more about Hypercycle during the coming months. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.